One.
Hey, what's up?
Hello, William. How you doing?
So, you've told me that people like when I ask you questions, so I do got a question for you.
Okay.
What is better to train reflexes? Normal trying to do it in real life or playing video games? Because a lot of people who are sitting there playing video games have really good reflex too. And so I think one way people could sit there and train their reflexes is also playing video games because it's just something casual you can do on the side while doing all the other training that you're doing. And it gives you a stress reliever too. So what do you think about that?
So, when it comes to training reflexes, I can understand the perspective that you see it from. You're learning to be vigilant about everything that's right in front of you and jumping around from this to that to this to that. It's like I understand that. But the only reflex you're training is your eyes and your fingers. That's the only reflex you're training. Because if you're doing it in real life, if a ball's coming at you on if you're playing a game, you're gonna go boop, you're gonna press X or boop boop boop. It's like you're training your fingers to be able to shoot someone in Call of Duty really fast and lock your eyes on them really well. But if you're doing it in real life, let's say for example you keep bringing up paintball or airsoft, it's you're training your reflexes to go and you catch a ball and you throw a ball. It's like it's taking a lot more physical effort to train your reflexes. So
That's why I said have uh, playing video games to upgrade your reflexes because I understand where you're coming from. Where if you're just sitting there playing video games to do your reflexes, it's not going to be really good. You want both in person and video games because in person, yeah, you can train your eyes to lock on to stuff and your fingers to quickly do stuff. But I think it's a lot easier on the video games, and plus, it gives you a stress reliever that you can sit there and do on your downtime, which is also sitting there working on your reflexes. Um, but I still agree with you also have to do it in person where you're just sitting there testing your reflexes and training them with like your other body parts that you can't really do in actual video games unless you're doing like VR. And even then, it's still not the best because not a lot of VR games you can sit there and do it the best.
so I understand your perspective and I don't disagree. I think one of the biggest things you keep bringing up is that video games are a stress reliever, and I don't disagree at all. Video games can be a great stress reliever and relieve a lot of dopamine and serotonin. You get a lot of dopamine and serotonin from video games because that's how they're designed. So they're addictive as well. But I'm going to use working out as an example. Working out is the same thing like training reflexes. So just use this as your mental example. So when it comes to working out, it is it's like training your reflexes, but it gives you the same, it can give you a stress relief and dopamine and serotonin, just like video games, but in a more healthier dosage. For example, playing video games makes your dopamine go like this, and when you stop, it goes like this. Video games, and then it goes down. Video games, and then it goes down. But with working out and doing other things, it goes. So it's a lot more controlled, and it's healthier for the mind and body, because now when your body plays video games and it goes, you're gonna be depressed this entire time that it goes down. But because you're working out and it goes like this, it actually stays like that for a while because it's more natural to the mind and the body because it's not instant dopamine. It's delayed dopamine. Because not
Well, I'm
only,
not saying video games are completely like for dopamine and relaxing because if you don't have the right mindset while playing video games, like you're sitting there playing, let's say, Fortnite. It's pretty popular. There's tons of pros out there who are just sitting there trying to get victory royale after victory royale and getting uh, through all these builds and take down all these bosses so they can have the best loot, go get as many kills as possible. Um, if you're not like sitting there focusing on what the true aspect of sitting there playing games is, which is sitting there hanging out with friends, playing, not actually winning. Because what is better than winning is having fun with your friends. Something that I figured out while sitting here playing video games is I've always had more fun while playing video games with friends than by myself. There's still been times where it's kind of irritating because they're just like off doing random stuff, and sometimes it's annoying, and you still sometimes get mad. And so you just gotta take a second to step back and then get back in there and just have fun. Because having fun is better than winning.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying, and I can 100% understand where you're coming from. I used to play video games the same way. It was to hang out with friends and enjoy. Like, I would play GTA all the time just to play video games with people. But I came to realize that I still felt lonely. Like, not consciously. I did not consciously feel lonely because I was talking with people, so to say. Because I was on video games, I was on that voice chat, and we were talking. So consciously, there was no loneliness. But subconsciously, I realized that I was still lonely. And the fact for me still feeling lonely was because I was sitting in my room by myself, looking at a screen with a controller in my hands, with no one around me, in a dark or bright. I mean, this light right now is shining really bright at my eyes, but it's still lonely.
Depending on if you're sitting there playing at night or in the morning.
Yeah.
Most people playing it at night.
Yeah. And so I still felt lonely. So I realized that even though subconsciously I felt lonely, but consciously I felt like I had friends and everything because I was playing online. I realized that the only way for me to not feel lonely is to be with friends in person. And it's a lot more challenging to be with friends in person. I completely understand. You guys may live in different cities, different states, you guys may have jobs, but in those designated times you guys choose to play video games with each other, I found that if we all were like, hey, let's play video games, then I realized we can instead, one of us just needs to, stand up and be like, instead of playing video games, let's all just go meet at the park. And yes, I found that meeting at the park was very, very, very boring at first because me and my friends were so used to the extravagant amount of stimulus that came with video games. Exactly. And so going to the park, it seemed very dark and dull and boring because you guys would sit there and you'd be like, well, I don't know what to do. I mean, am I supposed to talk to you? You're sitting right next to me.
That's why I think having a mix of playing games just online, going to the park, and then playing games together in person would be like the perfect balance of like those sections. Because then, like, even if you want to like sit there and hang out in person, but you don't really know what you want to go out and do, but you still want to sit there and have a conversation, but also still be together in the same room playing games. You can get together and be like, all right, let's go play Smash Brothers together and play it on one of our TVs and get together all together and sit there and hold a Smash Brothers tournament, just you guys. And then sitting there doing that. And when you guys go out to go for like a walk to a random destination, to randomly go to a store to check what they have. Oh, looky here. We found out we want to go and do this. We're going to go and walk there or drive there and go have fun out in public. And then when you can't really hang out because someone is like sick at home, but they can still kind of play, then you have the online games to sit there and play with them. And so like there's still workarounds of just not just sitting there playing it online.
So I understand where you're coming from. And for a few years, it used to be the same way for me. But then I think back to when I was younger and what I did when I was in middle school, for example. And when I was in middle school, I didn't play video games with people because I didn't have the ability to. And so what we would do is we would go outside. And it's very boring to go outside, don't get me wrong. But that was because I was so used to the stimulus of playing video games. But I found that when I think back to my middle school years, what did I do? What I did was we would meet up and then we would go do things. I'm not saying go do illegal things, but I'm just basing off examples.
Of course.
You're
You don't want to go out there and do illegal things because then it can be on your uh, uh,
criminal record.
criminal record, and then takes a lot of opportunities away from you, and it's just like, why would you do that?
And I completely agree.
Be safe.
And so when I think back to my middle school years, what we did was we went out exploring. We explored the woods, we explored the railroads, we explored these abandoned houses. Don't do that because that'll be trespassing, but depending, random houses. We would go riding bikes, we would go try new things like skateboarding, and we would see each other fail. We would go skateboarding, we would go longboarding, we would go play soccer, football, baseball, volleyball. And in those moments, I found that not only were we getting a better and cleaner and healthier source of dopamine and serotonin because we were doing something active, but it helped our body not only be more physical, so we were able to do more activities for longer periods of time, but it helped our brain become cleansed from the extreme amounts of dopamine and serotonin coming from video games and stuff like that. And I don't disagree. If someone's sick and stuff like that, yeah, there's workarounds. And then when you're in person playing video games, it's the same. I can understand, but if you have the right set of friends, I believe you can also sit down and have a very, very good, interesting conversation with them for hours and hours on end. Like, for example, me and my uncle, what we do is we sit down and have a conversation, and then hours, like 3, 4, 5 hours fly by sometimes, and it's 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. in the morning, and we didn't even realize we've been talking for that long, just because we both have a very enjoyable conversation. But that's because we don't sit there and play video games, so it lasts longer, and we're not relying on the dopamine hits from video games. So now we're relying on each other in the sense of enjoying each other's conversations. So you start to find people that you can sit there and have long, drawn out conversations with, and those conversations not only have valuable insight and knowledge for you to learn, but they become so thrilling and exciting that you want to have them all of the time because you're in the moment and you never know what they're going to say and you never know what they're going to do. So then it becomes so encapsulating in the imagery that they're expressing through their words. And it's very, very fascinating. And when it comes to playing video games, in my opinion and my opinion only, when you're playing video games, your body is doing something while your mind might be talking to them. So you're not 100% consciously involved in the conversation. So you can't have a deep, intimate
Conversation.
Exactly.
That's why, like, having a group of friends that can sit there and be able to sit there and play games in person, watch movies together, series, have a deep, meaningful conversation, play video games online, and having just friends that can do all of it and have like all these different things that you can sit there and do, I think is a lot better than just like a friend who can only have like meaningful conversations, because maybe the other one can't sit there and just do that because they might have like ADHD and they kind of want to be able to do something with their hands even if they're having a conversation, because even if it's a meaningful conversation, they just don't have enough stimulants, because some people need a lot of stimulants when they have ADHD, which understandable. ADHD, a lot of stimulants you need to. Sometimes you might be sitting there having a conversation and they might be moving their hands or sitting there fidgeting with something in their hands. Like a good group of friends is like there's someone who can sit there and have a good meaningful conversation, someone who's good at video games but isn't like sitting there bragging about it, or when you guys play is sitting there being nice, teaching you how to play and being like just a good sport about everything. And then having a friend who is more on the being like, we should go and do this, even though it's like something illegal. And then the friend who's like, keeps everyone not doing something illegal is just like, no, we can't do that, but we could go and do this. And basically suggest something that's similar, just not as illegal.
Yeah. And I think that when it comes to ADHD, for example, and someone needing to do something with their hands because of the lack of stimulus, use your hands. I mean, you see how I'm using big hand gestures and I'm moving around. that's because it helps engage not only the other person, but also yourself. And once you learn how to, I can't say properly communicate because I'm still learning, but appear to other people in different areas. So by using hand gestures, by using different tonalities and rates of speech when I talk, it keeps my mind and my body engaged because I'm focusing on how I speak, how I sound, the words I use, and my gestures. So it actually becomes engaging. And I used to think I couldn't do anything. So at first, I would probably, like a fidget cube, have a fidget cube in your hands and just be doing that. And don't get me wrong, when I'm having long, deep conversations with my uncle, for example, I'm probably doing something. Like I was just having a conversation with him and I broke my hair tie and I was playing with my hair tie. And that's okay. But that was the only thing that was going on was I was playing with my hair tie while he was talking, and then when I was talking, I would put it down and then I would start using my hands again because that draws me into the conversation. And so when it comes to ADHD, you have to find your own little tricks and tips to use. Like literally, like the example of twiddling your thumbs. Just literally do that if you need to, right? When the other person is talking. And just that alone keeps you engaged in the conversation.
Yes. Something that I always do is if I'm having a conversation, I was taught this from a very young age is you should always look at the person you're talking to or who is speaking at that point in time who's already started a conversation with you because then you're already sitting there paying attention to more of what they're saying. And I think that's why I built up sitting there talking with my hands. Like a lot of people uh, are just like, why do people talk with their hands? It's just like probably because they have ADHD and it's able to keep them more on track with their conversation. And they, for certain hand gestures, it's more for like certain things. Um, but other than that, like having a conversation takes practice. You got to figure out your own tips, tricks to just keep yourself engaged with the conversation. Um, Sitting there having a conversation while playing games is normal and natural to some people, especially if they've played video games online because they have to sit there and have a conversation with the person to sit there and communicate. And especially when we were younger and we were always sitting there playing games together, or even if we weren't playing the same game, we would still sit there and be in the same room having a conversation while sitting here playing our own game and figuring out what we were doing. And if we were playing the same game, we would be sitting here trying to figure out how we could do this or that and just having fun. And the way you can have fun with even with like a stressful game is you always just need to have someone to like sit there and have a conversation with. Like with scary games, you have to have like friends to sit there and play it with you, and it's so much funner because you're not sitting there just trying to get past the scary factor. You're sitting here having a conversation with your friend. Your friend just got their neck snapped by the monster, and you're sitting there just like, oh my god, what the just happened? Like, if we sat there and did a video where we were playing Lethal Company, we would probably be sitting there laughing our asses off because we are sitting here just having fun talking to each other while the other person just got killed because they decided not to drop their item to the Yippee monster. And it's just like, you should have dropped the item. He literally just wanted the item. And then you would have been free and alive.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. And, I used to think the same thing where having those conversations while playing video games was building a relationship. But then I found that it didn't really help with building the relationship with someone, in my personal opinion, in my opinion only, because I found that the conversation was always about the video game. Oh, you could have dropped that item. Oh my god, the monster's behind you. Oh my god, did you just die? It was always about the video game. It was never about, hey, how are you feeling today? Tell me, what really scares you? What's your
Well,
favorite
here's the
thing in
thing.
the world?
Well, here's the thing with like playing games, it's more of like getting to communicate better because then you can sit there and while in person sit there and have a more deepful communication. Because when we were younger, the only time we really communicated was while we were playing games, and then that led us to sit here and be able to communicate how we are now. And like if we are sitting there at grandma's house and one of us is on the bed and one of us is on the mattress, and we'd sit there and be like, I'm going to bed, and then the other person starts the conversation, and then they say they're going to bed, and the other person starts the conversation up again, and it's just like, we need to go to bed because we gotta get up in the morning, and it's just like, yeah, you're right, but what about this?
Yeah, I think the most interesting and deep, meaningful conversations we've had were when we were sleeping in the same room and we were trying to go to bed and we were just only talking to each other, right? And it was us talking about me and you and our fears and the way we thought about things and our thought processes and the way we viewed the world. And those were the most deep and intimate conversations we've ever had compared to any other experience. And that's
Yeah,
what.
but I don't think we would have been able to get to that point if we didn't start off by sitting there like playing games together, sitting there having fun while playing these games. Because to even get to like a point where you can sit there and communicate with someone pretty frequently, you have to sit there and first get used to it. And so even if you're sitting there playing a video game and not really like talking to each other about how your life is going, you're still getting the opportunity to sit there and communicate with that person and start being able to communicate with that person a lot easier and better, even if you're not sitting there talking about like, oh, this is how my life is going, this is how this is going, blah 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 blah. Like when we were younger, the only really times we were sitting there like hanging out was if we were playing a game, walking home, having a conversation. Like, yeah, you were still nice to me. You would still sit there and be a bully, but you didn't let anyone else bully me. If your friend, we were like the time where we were walking home, me, you, and your friend, you were sitting there making fun of me, and then your friend decided to sit there and make fun of me, and then push me a bit, and then you're just like pushed him and dropped him as a friend because siblings come first, and it just takes a lot of time to sit there and build up your communication skills with another person. To sit here and have like a communication like we are now, or when we were at grandma's and having those conversations where at first you're trying to go to bed and I'm just like, but what about this? And then you'd be like, I gotta go to bed now. And then you'd be like, but what about this? And it's just like a back and forth thing. It's basically you're playing chess one step at a time. If that the first step is just playing some games together, having a bit of communication, trying to get through the game, a lot easier and having that communication, it's better. And then you take your move, and it's just like, oh, we take the next step. We are sitting there just communicating without sitting there playing video games all the time. We're sitting there playing video games still, but also communicating other ways and sitting there just having a normal conversation other times besides just sitting there talking about games. There's many like steps before it gets to, oh, you're having a child, those type of deep meaningful conversations.
I don't think that'd be as deep. I think that'd be more terrifying and
You're having a child?
I think
You actually got a girlfriend and you're having a child? How did you do it? You never got bitches when you were younger.
yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head though. The conversation always starts out with trying to develop an understanding of how the other person communicates and then slightly tweaking the way you communicate to help them understand what you're saying and you understand what they're saying. So, for example, the way I go about a conversation is maybe the way most people start a conversation is, "Hey, how are you doing?" And then the other person, and it's like this very logical, you know what they're gonna say, and then you carry on. So the way I look at it in a business sense is, let's say I call up one of my business associates, and I'm like, I'm not gonna say, all right, these are the numbers, blah 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 blah, right? I say, hey, how you doing? "Oh, I'm doing good. How are you? I'm doing good, thank you. So I'm bringing this problem to you, and then go on. So it's like you start off very surface level, so we can say, And then it starts up here, and then you slowly get deeper, deeper, and more meaningful, depending on the kind of conversation you're choosing to have. Some people, keep this in mind, some people never will ever go past the surface, and it will never be meaningful. So this is where you have to learn to trust and respect people to understand how far under the surface you can go, how meaningful, how real, how realistic can you get with them? Like, what can you tell them that's going to get them to be like, oh, that's like, this person cares about me. Oh, that person really understands me. Oh, that person, I should never have a conversation with them again.
Especially if you're someone who sits there and has dark humor and
Huh?
you just like telling really dark humor jokes, and it's just like, I trust telling this joke to this person and not having them go be like, this man told a joke about the Nazis. He told a joke about the Vietnamese War
Yeah.
and like all these other jokes that you can find on the internet. You gotta figure out being like, can I be real with this person? Can I say whatever the fluff I feel like, or do I have to watch what I'm saying with this person?
Yeah, I completely agree. For example, I was in LA and I met these people and we bonded and connected really, really fast. And I was able to say anything and everything with them. Like those deep, dark humor jokes that you're talking about, I would say that to them and they would understand. And that blew my mind because they could see me for me. I was being real, I was being authentic, and they saw me for that and they accepted that. It was unconditional love, and that's very rare to come by these days. But then I was talking to someone that I see in my normal day-to-day life, and they said something and I made one of those jokes, and the first thing that came to my head was, oh, I'm sorry. And so that's what I said out loud. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just joking, because I know they don't like that, they don't understand that, and so they don't accept that. So I have to limit the realistic version, the most authentic version of myself when I'm around them. And you don't want to be around those people. I 100% agree. So you have to find those people you can be 100% your
That
real authentic self.
like with how people pick out their books is they go for what genre they really like. Some people can go with multiple genres, same with like their music and other stuff. That's why if you like make a book series that is sitting there going from just one genre to like another, it's just like, whoa, this is going from like mystery horror to fantasy horror to another mystery horror fantasy, and it's just like this is going from weird to like adding more genres to it, and it's just like, whoa, what, this is honestly interesting. And you just got to find those people who can go from picking one genre to able to go for any of like the different genres of music, books, anything. Basically, being able to give like 100% you, and they'd be like, "Oh, I." And sometimes it takes a bit for the person to be able to sit there and see the 100% real you. That's why there's some people who sit there and make jokes where it's just like, haha, now that you're comfortable with me, I'm going to show you the real me, and now you can't escape. It's just like even funnier because they start loosening up. It's just like those kids who sit there and swear at school, but then you go over to their house and they're one of the nicest people because you have a different demeanor while you're at school, but like when you're around your parents, it might be different.
I completely agree. It's what they call it is these facades, these fake faces that you put on when you're around different kinds of people. And most people that you meet, most people you know, your family, certain friend groups, certain business associates, you have different demeanors, different faces, different ways you act, different ways you communicate around each person. And even though there's those three, right? See how I'm doing that? Those three, there's still one group that you're missing out. And it's that group of people you can always know that you can be 100 and 100,002% yourself. And it doesn't matter what you say, what you do, who you are, they will always, no matter what you do in this
They're
world, they will love you unconditionally.
they're the people who can take like the facade of like with your parents, your coworkers, your other friends, and be like, oh, they're not really being them. They have seen every other facade that maybe not everyone else has seen. Like for some men, they don't show their sadness in public because they've grown up being like, oh, men aren't supposed to cry, blah, 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 blah. And some men have found places where they can actually sit there and cry their heart out to like some of their friends or their significant other. Like they find people who can actually sit there and they can show their sad, anger, excitement, happiness, and all these other different facades. Some facades you can only show to certain people, like can't show horny to your homies, and like even if you can show like all the other facades to them, horniness can only be for your wife. Like, no, don't show it to your homies. Like, yes, being gay for your homies is natural. It comes natural to every homie. But like some type of gay can stay under the table because that is not for the homies. Like sitting there being like, "Oh, I don't worry, homie. I stayed back here so you can tie your shoe, not alone." And like all these other funny situations.
Well, I think it's purely out of respect. And I completely understand the fact that when you find those people that you can have 100% of your emotion tied and wrapped around to, 100% agree. Because when I was in LA, for example, I met these people and I connected with them very, very well. And they could see through all of my facades, just like that. And so it gave me the ability, like even when I'm alone, like we have facades when we're alone too. And so when I was with them, I cried. And there was so many people around, but again, I don't care. It doesn't matter what people think. But when I was with them, I felt comfortable enough to cry with them in front of everyone else because nobody else mattered. But with them, I cried with them. And one of them, again, another male, cried too. Because we were able to see past all of the facades, it didn't matter. Now, also, that vulnerability of crying shows strength, not weakness, first of all. But it's true. Some people, right? You can only show your strengths. You can only say, "I am proud of myself. I'm happy. I'm great." But some people, you can be like, I'm just really not feeling it today. I'm just really sad. I'm in love. Oh my God, I'm in love. And I just those people you want to keep around, and you want to allow yourself to open up to them. And if that means you want to cry, if that means you want to yell at them and scream at them, or love them or hate them or cry, or it doesn't matter, all of the emotions, those are the only ones I can think about at this moment. You can trust that they will not dislike you, they will not leave you because you acted that way. It doesn't matter how you act because they've seen all of your facades. They trust and love you for who you are, no more, no less. They will never leave you because of that. They know you. You deserve unconditional love, and they will give that to you. Doesn't matter what you do. You can scream at them, yell at them. Now, again, you have to know your worth, and they know their worth. So they might, if you don't respect their boundaries, but they will love you even after they have to leave you. And they will always accept you back. Mm.
I think one of the funniest things that I've ever heard, but realize that sometimes, yeah, that is pretty true. Is something Fluffy said on stage, and he's sitting here just like, man, sitting there having a gay partner would be better than a woman. I'm just like, okay, hold on, what's going on here? And then he starts being like, if you're sitting there asking a woman if she's hungry, she's just like, well, maybe, I don't know. And then if you ask your gay partner if they're hungry, they're just like, yeah, I am. Where are we gonna eat? And he's just like, well, what do you want? Where do you want to eat? Well, I don't know. Where do you want to eat? And it's just like Burger King. Hell yeah! But for a woman, it might just be, uh, so where do you want to eat? Oh well, I don't know. How about you decide? And it's just like, well, let's go to Burger King. And she's just like, no, I don't want to go to Burger King. It's kind of like a puzzle. Like, yeah, you can still find the women who's just like, yeah, I'm hungry. You want to go to Burger King? Hell yeah! And it's just like people you can like truly fit in with, and be like, yeah, I'm hungry. I feel like this, and that's basically just like how the people you want, where you don't have to be like, well, I don't know, yeah, I don't know. You want people who you can be like, yeah, I'm hungry. You want to go to Burger King? Hell yeah! you feeling horny? Just like, yeah. And it's just like, just you can truly tell them what you're feeling at that moment in time and not be like hesitating about what you're saying. And I'm just like, instead of saying being like, that's why a gay relationship is better, I would have been like, this is why having a friend who you can sit there and no matter what you're talking about, be able to sit there and say your true emotions without hesitation is better.
I 100% agree. And I understand the fact that you're saying when it comes to men and women and the difference that they communicate. Now, here's the simple example. Women communicate through body language and expression, not through words. Men with words. For example,
Simple.
yeah, very simple, very, very simple.
Men are very simple creatures, and a lot of women say, no, they're so complicated. And I'm just like, no, we're simple creatures. If we say you're cute, that means you're cute. Unlike you, who says, oh, I think I like that person. You're more like, oh, he's a friend. And it's just like, oh, okay. Cool. Now I got to figure out if she's trying to flirt with me or if she just wants to be a friend. Or sitting there being like, "I." She says she's okay. Is that her actually saying she's okay or what?
Yeah, I can completely understand. And to bring it back to what I was saying was that women communicate through their body expression. So you have to read their body language. You have to read their emotion. You can't listen to their words. They may say, "No, I don't like you," but they're all up on you. They're trying to kiss you. Like they'll say, "No, I don't like you," but they're kissing you. They're loving on you. It's like so you have to read their body language. It's not about their words. Throw their words, like let their words go in one ear and out the other. Their body will tell you what they want and what they need.
Hey, some of the what you just said you should not do because if a woman is saying no because you asked for consent, then you should listen and not let it go through one ear and out the other. You understand that, Michael?
Okay, that's taken to the extreme, but I do understand what you're saying. But
Some of it you need to listen to, and some of it more just their body language.
just go with the
Because
flow. Just read, just go with the flow. See what happens, and
Because
things will
even
go
if
out.
their body language is saying, "Oh yes, I want this," sometimes their words are more actually correct because they don't actually want it. It's just their body is giving off the hormones.
To an extent, I think I would agree. For example, when I was in LA, I met this gay guy, and I connected with him very, very well. And I didn't realize he was gay until a few days later, and found out he wanted to sleep with me. And he was very straightforward about it too. But then I also met this other woman, and she was saying, but her body was saying, yes, please. And so I was just listening to the body, and it's like there was no regrets. It's an experience you have to learn through reading people's energy. So it's like, yes, men will express what they want, and women, you just got to read their body language. So I understand. It's like the woman will say, I'm not hungry. I don't want food. You're gonna get her food because that's what she's saying, but that's not what she wants. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I completely understand. So I was thinking that I wanted to tell you actually that I feel.
Hold on. Before we continue this conversation, I'm surprised he didn't ask that gay guy for his number because you would ask a random waiter's dude's number, but oh, you didn't ask that dude his number.
Well, that was a joke, the waiter. But I actually do have this guy's number because he became one of my friends. He's a good friend. I think gay guys are great friends too. I think that's not
Oh yeah,
only.
yeah. You could get really good friends who are gay, lesbian, transgender. Like, no matter what you are or how you present yourself, you can always be a good friend. It's the people who sit there and are just like, you meet for the very first time and you're just like, oh, hello, ma'am. And they're just like, did you just call me ma'am? Even though like their pronouns are something else. And they didn't even give you a chance to be like, oh, I'm sorry. What are your pronouns? They're just instantly hopping on you, being like very rude and like ignorant. Like those are the ones where it's just like, why would I want to continue this conversation with you? Like, I'd rather go continue a conversation with a giant spider than sit here in this conversation because like I don't mind who you are, like what your type is or whatever you pronounce yourself as long as you give me a chance because I have terrible memory, so I won't remember like the first time around. Uh, to sit there and be like, oh no, it's I don't go as him or he. I go as she, her, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And, like, give them a chance to like sit there and apologize and figure out, oh, you rather identify as a man or identify as a girl. And like, if you're not sitting there trying to push that stuff onto someone else and be like, you're not calling me by my pronouns, it's just like, I just met you and I forget easily anyways. And it's just like, you gotta find people who can sit there, like, even if they're like gay, straight, whatever, and is sitting there like being able to still sit there and be nice, even if they have a different preference than you. It's just a matter of, can you respect me and my choices? And I will respect yours choices. Just remember, I have bad memory and might forget that you rather be called, have different pronouns than you normal a normal male would have, instead of he, him. You're having they, them,
I
and
completely
it's
understand and I completely agree. It's like I met this gay guy and we were talking about God and he didn't like it when I said he, like I used God as a he. And he said, I don't like that. So it's finding those people that are honest about what they do and don't like. And he said, I don't like that. And I said, well, what do you prefer? And he said, I'd like to call it it. And so I made the change in that moment. And so it when I made that change in the moment, not only did it help, and I did slip up a few times. I did keep saying he, and he was like, and I prefer it, and I was like, oh, it's okay, it, my apologies. And then it's like just being respectful and being able to be very, very upfront about what you want and who you are. That authenticity, remember.
I think like with like, if you're sitting there talking about like God from like Christianity, I think it's fine to call him him, like he or him, even if it's like a she or her, due to the fact that we don't truly know, because he could have been white, he could have been black, he could have been black hair. We don't truly know. So just sitting there saying like he or him or she, her, most people say he because uh a lot of people sat there and throughout like the testament were talking about him as him or he, as like if he was a boy, and same with his name. It more sounded like a guy, and so a lot of more people sit there and think of him as a guy, and so I think that's why a lot of people just sit there and say he or him, instead of sitting there like transferring it to it or she, and that, because there's just been more like clues saying that he was more of a guy. Uh, Not saying that he couldn't have been a girl and God isn't a girl and all this other stuff. Like, he could be a black African American who is actually a girl, and it's just like, oh, well, we were wrong. Oh, well, good for you.
Yeah.
And we just took the hints that we got from the Bible, and it's just like, oh, okay, so he might be a he. So we're just gonna call him a he, and it's just like, a might actually be something else. And so like, sitting there just having something that you can just confidently like be like, oh, he sat here and did all this other stuff. It's not saying that he is a guy or he is white. You're just saying he as just a placeholder instead of being like it, because saying it feels more demeaning against it, because it sounds more like an object, and it's just like, I feel more uncomfortable calling someone who could have been real first and foremost, uh and who could have actually did all that stuff as it, because I would more call it like a object it than a person. Than Yeah, it's just like more awkward to call it an it, because that's more like uh an object, like you would call an object it, or you're sitting there playing tag and you'd be like, he's it, and like more of just not like how you would actually sit there and be like uh
Yeah.
calling someone it.
And so me and him came to a mutual agreement of what we would call it. And we chose to, since I don't necessarily like the idea of God and him and so on. Like I also don't really believe in that necessarily idea of Jesus and stuff. So what we came to the conclusion to was we would call it the source, the creator, which then helped me associate the source, the creator, with it. So we would say, I trust the source and it will get me where I want to go. And so that's what we would say, because now it was associated with the source and the creator, and the source and the creator was associated with, in most people's analogies, God.
And something that I don't understand about like Christians is they're sitting here like trying to say that gay people are terrible, they shouldn't exist. God doesn't actually like them. In the Bible, it said that God loved everyone and you should treat your man, your fellow human, as equal. And he didn't say on certain on specific things. He said treat your fellow man as equal,
Yeah.
not getting a like condition saying, oh, they have to be straight, they have to be this, they have to be white, they have to have blue eyes, and it. A lot of people are sitting here just like in like who sit there and have Christian like sit there and religiously follow Christianity are just like gay people are terrible. It's just like that's why a lot of people who sit there and follow Christianity don't like gay people, even though it never said that gay people are like a bad omen in the Bible.
I
And
agree.
so that's why I don't follow Christianity, and I also don't sit there and fully believe in all of like the different like religions. Like yeah, I'll take some of the stuff from like the different like religions to sit there and build up like a actual true understanding of like the world and how I should treat other people. Like yeah, I
Can
should
you
treat my fellow man as equal, and not just man, other people like even if they're gay, homosexual, which I think those are the same thing. Like I forget all the different names and what they all stand for
yeah.
because
So
I'm not good with my memory.
I can understand where you're coming from when it comes to not necessarily believing Christianity and all these other religions, and I completely agree. I don't like religion. So I came to the conclusion that instead of accepting religion, I can use religion or the Bibles, the different kinds of Bibles, as ways to relate and experience human existence and believe how I should treat people and look at the world. But instead of relying and trusting in Christianity, uh, Judaism, baptism, I don't know all of them, it doesn't matter.
That
It doesn't matter.
uh,
Is that
Judaism, Christianity, Buddhist, Greek, Norse. There's Roman. There's quite a few other
yeah.
ones that I'm
So
not
the
fully
thing
sure.
is because I couldn't believe in a single one, I chose to take the hierarchy. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you might believe in a higher power. So, taking that higher power, instead of accepting a religion, is we call it the source, the creator, it, the power, the universe. And so, that's just a name we associate with it instead of associating it with religion. Would you agree? Would you be willing to believe that?
Well, for like what I have is yeah, there could be someone who sat there and created the world, but I also think that there could have been all these other like gods and stuff, and like reincarnation could happen, or you could go to Valhalla and you could go to hell or heaven and all these different places. Like you just have to hit specific marks to go to like these different places. Like for
Well,
reincarnation,
I want to interrupt real
you
quick.
are just more like neutral, not good enough to be in heaven, but not bad enough to go to hell. So you get just reincarnated in another chance to go in it, or you're already in heaven and you just want to give life another shot, or you're in hell and you've repented for your sins and then you get reincarnated
Sure.
and go and reincarnate and you try again,
I can
or you
understand.
die in battle and you go to Valhalla, but you want to go and die in battle again because that's just what you want to do. you decide to go and get reincarnated, and more reincarnation is your choice, or you're just not good enough for heaven, you didn't die in battle, or you're just not bad enough to go to hell, so you just automatically get reincarnated.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, and I wouldn't disagree. But you know what I believe? I personally believe, in my opinion, and my opinion only, is that I learned to realize that heaven and hell is the human experience. The only heaven and hell there ever will and has been is the life you live on this earth or in this universe. There is no before or after death. It is this experience of human existence because God, right? We'll use that as an example. God created humans to experience what this reality is like. So this, by your choice, will either be heaven or hell. You can either have a life, which is what I've chosen, of heaven sent. Most people choose a life of hell without consciously realizing it. But heaven and hell is the life you live in this human vessel. This is just a vessel of human existence. This is just a vessel that God has given you to experience what it is like to live in this reality He has created. This is heaven or hell, and you choose which reality you want. Now, for me, I've chosen heaven, but most people don't even know that that's the choice. They don't realize you have a choice between having this existence of hell or having this existence of heaven. So most people live in hell without even noticing it. But when you become consciously and spiritually aware enough, I came to realize that my vessel, which is this body you're seeing right now, chooses whether it lives in heaven or hell. And to live in heaven, you have to follow the source in creating the heaven of your desire by doing the hard work, by choosing to escape and not be like everyone else, which is hell, and living the life you want and deserve.
Well, what it could be is that Earth is just the between of heaven and hell, and it used to. This might have just been like Earth is just like this plane of existence was used to just be battleground between God and Satan, and all the creatures that died during that war, they realized, well, that it was just meaningless, and so they gave up on the war, and instead of God just sitting there leaving all the creatures who did die during the war, just reincarnated them and creating this existence as we know as it now in time, which they started off as just like single cell organisms and allowing it to just grow and become what it is now, which would make sense with like the science behind everything, and then adding a bit of like the spiritual aspect of like religion and all that other stuff.
I can understand where you're coming from, and I don't disagree. But in my personal belief, this is heaven or hell. This existence that we're living right this moment is our choice of heaven and hell. Anyway, I think I might be in love, and I don't know to who or to what or why, because I'm not really talking to anyone, but all day today, I was just very emotionally charged with endorphins like serotonin and love because I was just so happy. I don't know who I'm talking to that's making me feel this way or anything like that, but I'm just being myself.
Who's been on your mind the most?
A few people, a few people.
Are you someone who wants to marry multiple people?
You know
Have a
what?
polyamorous relationship?
I think marrying many people. Okay, so I think there's two sides to marrying two people. There's a good and a bad side, where the good side is that you focus all of your energy on them and they help you become the best version of yourself. And marrying multiple people gives you the ability to have multiple lovers as well as multiple people to care for and care for you. And I don't know, I haven't decided what I want
I
yet.
think one thing that would have to like happen to like have like those multiple wives or multiple people that you're like interested in is those people also have to get along well too. And you also have to like figure out a plan of how you can sit there and be sit there and satisfy each person and like their desires. of like one person might want to sit there and be hanging out with you like alone, and so you got to figure out how you can sit there and separate time for each person, and maybe they just want to go and hang out with themselves and be like, and you just have to figure out what you're gonna do.
Or maybe they're all going to plot against you to kill you and take all of your money.
That would be perfect. Then I can be like, how am I gonna die? Let's see how they're gonna plan on killing me.
Let's see which one comes up with the smartest idea. You know what? Let me help you plan my own death.
That reminds me of like this joke. This guy was sitting here. This isn't like a true story. It was a joke. This guy, his father told him he has 3 options to get married, and he decides to set up a test. He gave each woman $10,000 to do something with. The first person spent on making herself more beautiful, and sat there and spent it all for herself and made herself look prettier. And she said, I went out and spent the money on making myself look more prettier for you. And then the next one went out and bought him gifts with that money. And she said, I went out and spent all the money for getting you gifts. And then the last one said she went out and invested that money, making a profit and giving back the 10,000, and then putting the other on investments and saying, I invest the money for our future. And then sitting there just like, and after thinking about it for a while, he picked the one with the biggest hits. I'm just like, God damn it.
Yeah. So take that into the males example. If men were to do that, women would pick the ones who invested the money for their future. Because the way I look at it, look at all the for the people that I look up to personally. Look at all of them. How old are, I was looking at this earlier actually, is how old are all of the people I look up towards? They're all near their early or late 30s or late 20s. No one is like really younger than that. And so what I found out was that they spent their entire teenage years and early and late 20s building themselves up financially, physically, spiritually, and mentally and emotionally. So then by the time they were in their early or late 30s, they had all of the necessary equipment mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually to take care of their future family. Right? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Good way of thinking about it. Well, there's about been an hour now that it is spooky time.
Spooky time!
Look at the
Go check out the Patreon if you haven't already. I haven't even set it up, so I still got to figure out how to do that, and everything's still under works. Oh, shit. We're still going to
Then
record
why
an
are
extra
you
20
even
minutes.
talking about it?
I don't know. You look like a floating head right now to me.
Yes, and that's why you got the black shirt to make you look like a floating head.
You look like a floating head, and I just look like... I don't know. What do I look like?
Look like those tendrils. I think one of the funniest jokes I've like laughed at the most was from Cards Against Humanity, and it's just like, only because like someone played a card, and I'm just like, someone that I was playing it against was just like, man, if China and Japan lost their porn production, they would lose a lot of their economy. I'm just like, you can't say that, but you might be right. God damn it. And it was just so funny that I'm just like, you could be right. Because a lot of like the stuff that comes from there is just like, oh, cool. And it's just, oh, there's just so much that comes from there. And it's just like the anime, a lot of the anime. Jesus Christ, they make so much good anime there too. But that's the end of the podcast. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you can achieve what you want, and I will go have fun with what I'm going to
Hey,
do.
you're gonna
which is
achieve everything
probably
you
watch
want to, William. Trust me, you're gonna start achieving things
I
so
will
fast.
achieve what I want to, but right
It's
now
right
I'm just
around the
gonna go
corner for you.
probably watch some YouTube.
It's okay. That's fine. I'm just saying that your success is imminent and it's right around the corner. Like you're about to pop off just like that. You're about to achieve so much success in the near future, William. So, all right, William. Bye bye. Enjoy your life. Hope I never
Bye.
see you again.